Every year, professional investment teams have to answer one deceptively simple question. How much of a portfolio should sit in large cap, how much in mid cap, and how much in small cap? Most people assume that's either a gut call or a fixed rule of thumb. It's neither. There's actually a repeatable process behind it. And once you see it, you'll never look at large cap versus mid cap versus small cap the same way again. Here's what most investors do instead. They pick a split based on how they feel. Small caps have been on a run, so they chase them. Or markets feel shaky, so they retreat entirely into large caps for safety. Some people just default to whatever percentage a random YouTube video or relative told them 5 years ago and never revisit it. The problem is that market cap segments don't stay attractive or risky forever. Their earnings outlook, their pricing, and their risk profile all shift over time. A decision made once and never revisited is really just a guess wearing the costume of a strategy. So how do professional allocators actually make this call? They run each segment, large, mid, and small cap, through the same 4 checks every single time. Before the 4 checks, it helps to be clear on what large, mid, and small cap even mean. Using the standard SEBI-defined bands, the top 100 listed companies by full market cap are considered large cap, the next 150 are mid cap, and everything beyond that is small cap. That's the universe being sliced up. Now, here's how professional teams decide how much weight to give each slice. Check 1. Future earnings potential. The first question isn't, what has this segment returned in the past? It's, what are companies in this segment expected to earn going forward? Analysts publish growth estimates for the companies within each cap band, and those estimates can be aggregated into a rough sense of the segment's earnings trajectory. If, say, small caps are expected to grow earnings meaningfully faster than large caps over the next year or two, that's a signal, not a guarantee, that giving small caps a bit more weight could pay off, because share prices tend to follow earnings over time. Check 2. Valuation, or what's sometimes called froth. Froth is simply a measure of how much a market or stock's current price exceeds or falls short of its estimated fair value based on expected earnings. This check exists because strong earnings growth alone isn't enough. If a segment is already priced well above what its future earnings can justify, you could be paying today for growth that's already been spent. So allocators compare each segment's current valuation to its own history and to what the earnings outlook would justify to see whether they'd be buying growth at a reasonable price or an expensive one. Check 3. Market risk, measured through beta. Beta is a measure of how much a fund or stock moves relative to its benchmark. A beta of 1 means it moves in line with the market. Below 1 means it's less volatile. The common assumption is that mid and small cap are always riskier than large cap. But beta doesn't stay fixed. It tends to look different depending on the holding period. Over a 1-year window, mid and small cap can look meaningfully more volatile. Stretch that out to a 3 or 5-year window, and the gap often narrows. This is why time horizon matters enormously to this decision. A check that looks scary at one horizon can look far more reasonable at another. Check 4. Liquidity conditions. This is really 2 questions in one. First, if meaningful new money flows into a segment, is there enough depth in the market to absorb it without prices getting distorted? Second, if there's ever a wave of redemptions, will there be enough buyers on the other side to exit those positions in an orderly way? Allocators look at where money is actively flowing, including steady, recurring flows like SIP investments, which behave differently from one-off lump sum flows, as a rough proxy for how much cushion and depth a segment currently has. Only after running all 4 checks, earnings, valuation, risk, and liquidity, do allocators land on a market cap mix. And critically, this isn't a one-time decision. It gets revisited on a regular cycle, because any one of those 4 inputs can shift. Here's a simplified, purely illustrative example of how the logic might play out, not a live recommendation, and not reflective of any actual current allocation. Imagine mid and small cap companies are projected to grow earnings noticeably faster than large caps next year. And, after checking valuations, that extra growth isn't being priced in at an unreasonable premium. Beta over a multi-year holding period looks only marginally higher than large cap. And steady monthly flows are going into all three segments in healthy proportion. Put together, that combination might justify leaning somewhat more into mid and small cap than a safety-first instinct alone would suggest, not because they're trendy, but because each of the four checks pointed the same direction. The next time you hear someone confidently state, "I'm 70% large cap because it's safer," or "I'm all small cap because that's where the returns are," ask them which of the four checks they actually ran: earnings, valuation, risk, or liquidity. If the honest answer is none, that's not a strategy. It's a preference dressed up as one. That's the process behind one of the most consequential and most guessed at decisions in portfolio construction. Thanks for watching. Check out the video description. We've packed it with resources just for you. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs it.